Hi, my name's Desiree, and in this video, I'll be discussing the largest organ of the body, which is the skin, going over layers, what structures we can see in the skin and its layers, go over the functions of the skin, how it helps us, explain moles and what to look out for if you come across one, and then explain the different types of burns and how we kind of classify it on your body, like what percentage we use. So first off, we are going to discuss the skin layers and structures. So, um, again, my pictures are not the greatest, but as you can see, the two layers of the skin, which is the epidermis and the dermis, and then we can also see it's not technically a layer of skin, but it's that subcutaneous layer or the hypodermis. This is where you can see the adipose tissue. This is where most of the blood vessels are, kind of just supplying that dermal layer. With what it needs. It's kind of where insulation comes into play too, and it's what binds the skin to the underlying muscles. So first of all, we'll talk about the epidermis, and it is composed of 4 to 5 layers. So first layer, which is the deepest layer, would be that stratum basal. This is where they're still getting a blood supply, so the cells are still alive, they're still rapidly dividing. And then as it goes closer to the top or closer to that last layer, they start to keratinize, die off, and flake off. So we go from the stratum basal, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, and then stratum corneum. That is where we have those dead cells. That very top layer, that's where our skin sheds. At this point, cells are dead, so they flake off. But where we have thicker layers of skin, or like thicker skin, which you can think of like the palms of your hands or soles of your feet, they have an extra layer called the stratum lucidum. And if you have these layers, they're not going to produce hair there. It's just an extra layer of protection for us. Um, so going back to my picture, next we can talk about the dermis, and I couldn't really find layers of the dermis. It is mostly made up of like connective tissue, like areolar, col it has collagen, it has elastic fibers in it to kind of keep that rigidity, and elasticity of the skin. So, like if you touch something, if you push down, if you pull your skin, it's going to go right back. It's not going to just rip off. So going back into structures of it, here we can see the blood vessels, and it does come up and still supply part of that epidermis for us. But we can see little capillaries where oxygen is exchanged for that. We have merocrine sweat glands, and those, again, kind of open up with temperature regulation, to pour. So that's kind of where you release that sweat. Here we have like the whole kind of hair structure going on. So with that, we can see the hair follicle, the hair shaft, and where we see that erector pili muscle, which is responsible for like goosebumps and having our hair stand up straight. We have like a little hair bulge, and these little glands that come off of that hair follicle are the sebaceous glands. So this is what produces sebum, which kind of coats the hair, to make it soft. It kind of coats our body for an extra layer of protection, helps us with being waterproofed. And then we have the hair shaft, which is what comes out of the body. So anything after that epidermal layer that breaks through, that is the hair shaft. And then we can see that, again, like I talked about capillary, I did kind of try to talk about that top layer, stratum corneum, bottom layer, stratum basal. We have tactile corpuscles within there. We have nerve cells that are in here, which kind of stimulate those erector pili muscles. Again, like I said, the dermal layer kind of has all that collagen, elastic fibers kind of without that in that matrix to again give us elasticity. The main functions of skin are protection and touch. So, what I mean protection is that we have that, I guess, outside layer that kind of protects our outside environment from getting in. It helps with touch, so like our perception of heat, pain, um, sensation, anything like that. This is where we get that vitamin D production. So like when you go out into sunlight, you get that vitamin D to kind of help the calcium to help your bones. Also with protection, it has melanin in there, which I do not have a lot of, but everybody has their different types of skin color, different amounts of melanin to help with that UV protection from the sunlight. It helps with temperature regulation. So, like I talked about with those Miraquin sweat glands. So, it tells our blood vessels in there to dilate, to release sweat so that we can cool off, or it's going to tell it to constrict so that we can keep the heat in. And if it gets too far, make our muscles shiver. It's where we excrete waste. So like the sebum, that's what it comes out of. I mean, if it gets plugged up, that's where you get your pimples. Like I said, sensory receptors can help heal wounds because it's kind of a fast growing, dividing organ. So we kind of can heal ourselves. And now we will talk about the moles. So in our book, it has the A, B, C, D, E of moles. So I'll show you my pictures after. So moles should be like defined borders, one uniform color throughout. Again, I have very fair skin, blue eyes. It's dyed, but blonde hair. So I have a lot of moles. So I get mine checked regularly, and you can see that they're pretty defined. You can tell where it ends, and they're mainly like one color all throughout. But I have a lot of them, so I have to keep checking because, again, sunlight and me do not mix. So how we check our moles is with the asymmetry. So I drew like a little line. So like all throughout, it's not uniform. So like you can see more. Some places could be higher or lower. It's just not like if you cut that mole down the middle, it's not going to look the same on both sides. B, we have borders. And like I said, normal cell, your borders are well defined. These ones, not well defined, can lighten up, can be irregular. Again, I've had mine checked and I've had a couple taken off just because the borders didn't look right. Then next for C, we look at color. So with that, you can have like a lot of it. If you see black or super dark brown, that's when you should be concerned. Get it checked out. They can have different colors throughout it. I've seen some that can be like black, and then you can actually see red throughout it. Diameter is for D, and that's just you want to check to make sure it doesn't grow above 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch. And then I like that last one. The book talks about its evolution or change. And I put weeks on here, but like obviously it's not like it grows this fast. So like say week 1, you have just a regular mole, nothing, no issues, borders well defined, one color throughout. Then you look at it again, start seeing some color changes, start seeing that it grew a little bit. Borders aren't as defined as before. And then week 10, like different colors. It's gotten bigger, then 6 millimeters. It's just changed. And if you have that, then it's something that you would want to discuss with either your primary or dermatologist to get checked out. So next section, and I'm just going to cover this part because I found a better way to discuss it. But we want to talk about burns next. So with burns, we have first, second, and third degree burn. First degree burns are the superficial partial thickness burn. So like your regular sunburns, that don't blister. All it is kind of just epidermal layer. Like, I don't know if you can see it, but like my cheeks are a little bit sunburned because I went tanning today. This heals in like a week or so. Next off, we have second degree burns, which are partial thickness burns. It's gonna involve the epidermis and that upper level of the dermis. Again, you can see that with sunburns. Where it starts to blister, it takes a little bit longer to heal. You want to be careful with these ones too, because if you pop those blisters, you can get opening yourself up to infection. And then we have the third degree full thickness burn. So that's going to involve the epidermis, the dermis, and some of those accessory structures. So like hair follicles, nerve follicles. You're going to see blackened areas where it's kind of charred. Once you get there, it's really important to just be aware of how big it is and how deep it can be. Want to do grass to kind of help that promote healing, because again, if you think about it, in a third degree burn, how deep it is, if you get yourself into the muscle or to even the bone, you're opening yourself up for infection that's going to spread super fast into your body. So again, just protecting yourself and just being aware of where your burns are is very important. Like Ms. Eric said, Dr. Huggard, I'm sorry, said is, you're in a burn unit at that point. And they're doing grafts. So next off would be the rule of nines, just discussing on like what percentage we count your body. So I'm just going to go, because I cannot draw to save my life. So I'm going to use my handy dandy Barbie. So, the head, anterior and posterior, are both considered 4.5 if you're not like adding them together. So anterior is 4.5, posterior is 4.5 for your head and neck. The trunk, anteriorly is 18% and posteriorly is 18%. So that is 36% altogether. Your upper extremities, 4.5 anterior, 4.5 posterior. Total of, because you have two, so 1 is 9, 2 is 18. With your lower extremities, they both are 9%. On the anterior and posterior, so that's 36 altogether, and then your perineum is 1%. So anterior, posterior, neck 9%, your trunk is going to be 36%, your upper extremities, both sides, are going to be 18%, perineum is 1%, and lower extremities is 36%, totaling 100% of your body. So depending on how bad your burn is, we're going to look through that so that we can grade. So to say like, oh, well, 20% of the body was burned or 80% of it was burned. And that's kind of just going to discuss your treatment plans along with whether or not we're going to use burn unit at this point.